The controversial and mysterious Shroud of Turin, revered by millions, hasn't been seen by the public for 10 years. And this Easter, officials say once again the fragile cloth will not be put on display.
A centuries-old relic carried encoded information no human could forge, an image neither painted nor printed, yet seemingly impossible by known methods. Recent AI analysis claims a mathematically precise signal within the Shroud of Turin, pointing to something beyond medieval trickery or natural decay. This isn't about belief so much as a stubborn scientific anomaly hiding in plain sight for 2,000 years. Imagine a cloth acting like a photographic negative before cameras, rendering a three-dimensional human form with uncanny detail. The question isn't only whether it's real, but what force could have made it. The shroud's intriguing physical image. The Shroud of Turin has long fascinated and baffled researchers, revealing an image unlike any conventional artwork. This ancient linen cloth carries the faint imprint of a man's body, but what sets it apart is how that image physically exists on the fabric. The coloration rests solely on the very topmost microfibers of the linen threads, reaching a depth of just a few hundred nanometers, thinner than a soap bubble and invisible to the naked eye. Unlike traditional painting or dyeing, the image does not seep into the fibers, but seems more like a scorch or chemical alteration. When scientists sliced a thread crosswise, they found the center pure white, untouched by any color. There were no brush strokes or any indication of directionality, ruling out typical artistic methods. Instead, the fibers appear to have been altered by a sudden and rapid burst of energy, superficially modifying their chemical makeup. This shallow imprint challenges every standard explanation because it is virtually impossible to reproduce with known medieval techniques or natural processes. The image's brightness and darkness follow a remarkably precise rule, mirroring how the cloth might have draped over a three-dimensional body. Shadows or painted shading wouldn't result in this kind of data pattern. Instead, the image intensity directly corresponds to the distance between the cloth and the underlying body. Closer areas appear darker, while more distant spots are lighter. This creates what could be called a perfect mathematical mapping of volume, something no medieval artist could have contrived. What is even more perplexing is the absence of any physical paint, dye, or pigment. The image's unique qualities make it behave more like data encoded in the fabric rather than an artistic rendition. It suggests that the shroud may be the imprint of something extraordinary, something that transcends human craftsmanship. Many skeptics have dismissed it as a forgery, but the physical evidence demands a deeper and more open-minded inspection. For centuries, no repeatable method of producing this kind of image has been found. The superficiality alone defies typical artistry, but combined with the mathematical mapping of bodily features, we face an enigma that tests scientific boundaries. This raises a pivotal question. How was this image created, and by what means? The answer, as later analysis reveals, is far stranger than anyone imagined. Adding to the intrigue, the image contains anatomical precision seen in no known artwork from the medieval period. It captures details of the human form, injuries, and proportions with astonishing accuracy. This suggests not only intense skill or knowledge, but possibly an origin far beyond human intention. The mystery deepens with every scientific lens brought to bear on it. The dilemma posed by the shroud has persisted in part because it refuses to fit neatly into any category. It straddles art, biology, chemistry, and physics, contradicting assumptions from every discipline. Its nature as a physical object resists explanations limited to forgery and calls for a breakthrough perspective. As researchers began using advanced technology to analyze the shroud, the subtle patterns and structures locked beneath the visible image started to emerge. Patterns that no eye could see, but an AI could detect with startling clarity. A new chapter in the investigation opened when machines designed to find order in chaos revealed the shroud's hidden mathematical secrets. AI detects mathematical symmetry. Artificial intelligence, particularly neural networks trained to detect complex signals, recently transformed the study of the Shroud of Turin. Scientists fed the shroud's visual data into an AI model originally created to identify signals from deep space, a fitting tool to sift through the chaotic fibers of the linen. The expectation was to confirm skepticism, perhaps uncovering randomness or signs of forgery. Instead, the AI stopped abruptly upon detecting a compelling anomaly. What the AI found was a mathematically perfect projection of a human body, a pattern so precise it ignored gravity and defied natural formation. Beneath the faint image lay a hidden structure defined by repeating symmetries and ratios, invisible to centuries of human observers. The AI stripped away the noise of fabric weave, fire damage, and other distortions to expose a consistent geometric code woven into the image. These patterns are so exact they could not have been created by human hands, especially not in medieval times. To replicate this would require mastery of physics, advanced mathematics, and nanotechnology, far beyond the reach of known historical artisans. The image essentially behaves like a projection, emerging not as a shallow painting, but as a digitally encoded map of three-dimensional information. The neural network's discovery suggests an intelligence at work that moves beyond traditional art, hinting at encoded data rather than creative expression. The digital ghost, locked in the threads, implies this object captured something more akin to a physical record than imagery. This challenges long-held theories of fraud or fakery. Moreover, the AI's analysis confirmed that the shading and image darkness match perfectly with distance from the body. This physical law-like behavior would be impossible for a forger to consciously encode, especially without modern technology. The shroud's image rises from the cloth as if it were a meticulous 3D blueprint, not a flat drawing. The discovery caused shockwaves across scientific circles, rewrites the boundaries of what we consider possible in historical imagery. It begged the question, if not art or forgery, then what? The AI's ability to see the shroud's hidden mathematical truth demanded a radical rethinking of the entire phenomenon. This breakthrough marks a key moment where science and technology join forces to unravel one of history's greatest puzzles. The shroud is no longer merely a curiosity. It becomes a complex scientific data set waiting to be decoded. Having seen what AI uncovered beneath the surface, it's worth recalling how even early photography gave a startling nod to the shroud's mystery, hinting at secrets long hidden to the naked eye. A journey into the early days of imaging technology reveals how the shroud baffled scientists well before the digital age. Historical mysteries and early photography. The Shroud of Turin's strange properties came under intense scrutiny as early as 1898, when Secondo Pia, a lawyer and amateur photographer, took the first-ever photograph of the cloth. Developing the glass plate in his darkroom, Pia was stunned to see the faint, blurry image suddenly emerge as a sharp and clear negative. This meant the shroud carried a photographic negative-like image centuries before photography was even invented. This discovery caused immediate disbelief. How could a medieval artist paint a photographic negative? A concept not invented until the 19th century. Artists historically worked with light and shadow the usual way, not by inverting brightness to create a negative image. Pia's photograph forced scientists to reconsider the shroud's origins and the methods behind its formation. Decades later, in the 1970s, further technological analysis deepened this mystery. A team from the United States Air Force Academy applied a VP-8 image analyzer, originally designed by NASA, to map the topography of the Moon and Mars, to a photo of the shroud. Unlike ordinary photos that appear distorted in this system, the shroud image produced a flawless three-dimensional rendering. The results were astonishing. The VP-8 analyzer interpreted brightness on the shroud as height, creating a perfectly undistorted three-dimensional human form. Darker areas corresponded to parts of the body closer to the cloth, while lighter zones represented further distance. This accurate 3D relief was unlike any other photograph and suggested the image encoded real physical dimensions. This 3D evidence supported earlier AI findings, reinforcing the idea that the shroud's image was not a flat painting, but a kind of volumetric projection. The notion that a body's image somehow passed through the cloth, imprinting depth information, challenged the normal boundaries of art and science alike. The shroud's image thus acts more like a physical map, one that challenges centuries of assumptions and indicates a technology or event beyond medieval capacities. Scientists remain puzzled about the mechanism behind this imprinting. questioning whether natural or supernatural forces played a role. The unexplainable nature of the shroud's 3D mapping adds to the paradox of how such an object could exist unnoticed by mainstream science for so long. Early photography and NASA-grade technology both converge to emphasize its anomalous status. As the shroud continues to surrender its secrets under technological scrutiny, another discovery awaits: the bloodstains, offering forensic clues that add yet another layer to its astonishing story. Bloodstains and image formation sequence. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence on the Shroud of Turin comes from the bloodstains scattered across the cloth. Unlike the image itself, these stains are real human blood, identified as type A, and forensic analysis confirms they are genuine, not paint or pigment. The position and patterns of the blood correspond to wounds consistent with crucifixion, matching historical accounts of the suffering depicted. This alone challenges any notion that the shroud is a mere artistic creation. What makes the blood even more intriguing is its relationship to the image. Detailed scientific examination reveals that the blood was deposited on the cloth before the image formed. Underneath the bloodstains, there is no trace of the body's image, meaning the blood soaked into the fibers first. If the image had been painted, the artist would have had to leave the blood white and then painstakingly paint around it without overlapping, an almost impossible feat in the Middle Ages. This inconsistent timeline between blood and image undermines the forgery theories decisively. The blood, soaked deeply and distinctly, precedes the superficial scorch-like image that sits only on the fabric's surface. It suggests two separate processes, one biological and one anomalous, both captured in the same cloth. The imprinted body does not disrupt the blood, hinting at an extraordinary event rather than craft. Forensic experts note the lack of smearing or disturbance in the bloodstains as well. If the body had been removed physically from the shroud, these stains and delicate clots would show damage or smears. The preservation of such details points to an unusual setting during the formation of the image and bloodstains, implying the cloth remained undisturbed until the image materialized. This sequencing supports the idea that the blood is authentic and that the shroud's image did not result from normal painting or contact. Instead, it points to some interaction crossing biological and physical boundaries. Whatever created the image must have post-dated the blood flow, aligning with the concept of a sudden burst or projection. Scientific testing confirms that the blood composition contains real hemoglobin and serum, with chemical markers typical of a human wound. These details provide another layer of empirical support that defies easy dismissal as relic superstition or artifice. The shroud records a forensic reality, adding to its puzzling authenticity. The preservation of both blood and image without interference creates a locked timeline. First blood, then image, both improbably sustained without degradation or contamination for centuries. This chronological anomaly brings us closer to understanding the shroud's unique formation while deepening the mystery. Moreover, the blood's type and pattern have been cross-checked with other relics, linking historical artifacts and supporting a continuous narrative that challenges medieval dating assumptions. These forensic clues act as a biological fingerprint that connects the shroud to a far older origin. As the blood's story unfolds, it inevitably leads to questions about the scientific grounding of the shroud's age, questions that came under intense scrutiny following radiocarbon dating efforts in the late 20th century. The controversy around dating methods uncovers more complexities, revealing how science itself struggled to pin down this relic's true age. Flaws in radiocarbon dating. In 1988, a major scientific claim seemed to settle the Shroud of Turin's authenticity debate. Radiocarbon dating tests by 3 independent laboratories dated the cloth to the Middle Ages, around 1260 to 1390 AD. This finding was hailed as proof of a medieval forgery. However, further examination revealed serious flaws that cast doubt on these results, suggesting the shroud's true age could be much older. The primary issue lay in the sample selection. To avoid damaging the main cloth, researchers took a small swatch from a single corner, a section heavily handled over centuries. This corner had endured extensive wear and, more importantly, suffered damage in a 1532 fire. After the fire, skilled nuns repaired the shroud using a technique called invisible reweaving, where cotton threads were woven into damaged linen to stabilize it without obvious signs. Later chemical analyses, especially by chemist Raymond Rogers, discovered that the tested sample consisted largely of this repair material, a mixture of cotton and dyed linen, not original flax fibers from the shroud's main body. As a result, the radiocarbon dates reflected the age of the repairs, not the authentic cloth. This revelation invalidated the initial medieval dating. The invisible reweaving patch's material was chemically distinct, showing altered cellulose structures compared to original linen. Dating this contaminated sample naturally produced a younger age, misleading scientists and the public alike. The mistake is akin to dating a modern patch on an ancient garment and assuming the whole piece is new. This discovery was supported by other scientific methods, such as wide-angle X-ray scattering, which evaluates the breakdown of cellulose structures over time. These tests show flax degradation levels in the shroud comparable to fabric's radiocarbon dated to the 1st century AD, strongly contradicting the medieval timeline. Additional vibrational spectroscopy analyses confirmed these findings, supporting a much older age for the cloth. These robust physical tests suggest the shroud itself is roughly 2,000 years old, aligning with historical and forensic evidence rather than the medieval forgery claim. Complicating matters, the shroud shares remarkable similarities with other ancient relics, such as the Sudarium of Oviedo, a face cloth preserved in Spain with a documented history back to the 7th century. AI comparisons of blood-stain patterns and blood types on both cloths revealed near-perfect matches, suggesting a shared origin predating the Middle Ages. This growing evidence of radiocarbon dating errors and cross-relic analysis compels a reconsideration of the shroud's timeline while highlighting the dangers of rushed conclusions based on compromised samples. It illustrates how historical trauma and efforts to preserve artifacts can inadvertently cloud scientific inquiry. The flawed radiocarbon dating controversy serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us that science must approach ancient relics with care, open-mindedness, and thoroughness. As the shroud continues to intrigue, new scientific techniques keep pushing our understanding beyond conventional boundaries, leading straight into the realm of extraordinary physics and unexplained phenomena. New discoveries on the physics behind the shroud's image will challenge everything we thought we knew about how this relic came to be. Modern scientific dating techniques. New technologies have recently breathed fresh life into the debate over the Shroud of Turin's true age, moving beyond the controversial radiocarbon tests of 1988. Among these, wide-angle X-ray scattering offers a sophisticated way to assess the structural degradation of flax cellulose, the primary fiber in the shroud's linen. By examining how the atomic structure has broken down over time, scientists can estimate the fabric's actual age without relying solely on carbon dating. This method has revealed degradation patterns consistent with textiles from roughly 2,000 years ago. Another powerful tool, vibrational spectroscopy, analyzes molecular vibrations to detect chemical changes in ancient materials. Applying this to the shroud's threads yielded results that correspond closely with 1st century linen fabrics, much older than medieval times. Together, these methods create a cross-verified scientific foundation, suggesting the cloth dates back to the era traditionally associated with the historical Jesus, challenging past assumptions. These findings align with other archaeological and historical evidence, building a strong case for the shroud's antiquity. Importantly, this approach avoids contamination problems seen in radiocarbon samples since it studies the molecular breakdown of the existing fibers rather than small patches altered by repairs. The shroud's structural timeline thus emerges not from carbon isotope tests, but from more direct physical and chemical changes within the linen itself. Additionally, the shroud's resemblance to the Sudarium of Oviedo, a blood-stained cloth from Spain with well-documented historical roots in the 7th century, supports the argument for an ancient origin. Detailed AI comparisons have found near-perfect matches in blood type, shape, and stain patterns, suggesting a connected story. If both relics predate the Middle Ages, it flags a previously overlooked web of interconnected artifacts spanning centuries. These innovative scientific techniques highlight the importance of continuously revisiting long-standing debates with fresh eyes and tools. They remind us that the pursuit of truth in historical mysteries is rarely settled, but deepens with every technological advance. The shroud is no longer just an artifact of faith or folklore. It has become an object of rigorous scientific inquiry. Yet, these dating breakthroughs raise new questions. If the cloth is so old, how was its image formed, defying the conventions of art, chemistry, and physics? Resolving this puzzle requires looking not just at age, but at the unique physical and energetic processes that shaped the shroud's visible imprint. The shroud's mysterious origin challenges science to uncover phenomena beyond ordinary explanation, the very kinds of phenomena that AI first hinted at when it detected an impossible signal encoded in the fabric. The quest to understand moves from time to the nature of light, energy, and matter itself. Before we explore the remarkable physics behind the image, it's vital to grasp how the light interacted with the cloth in ways no known natural or artistic process can explain. What kind of radiation could create such a perfect three-dimensional imprint without harming the fabric? The answer takes us deep into a world of ultraviolet radiation and colossal energy bursts, moving far beyond traditional imaging methods. The physics behind the image. Scientists have long struggled to explain how the shroud's image appears so detailed and remarkably superficial without damaging the linen underneath. Recent research points to a specific form of ultraviolet radiation that can alter the very top surface of linen fibers without burning or weakening them. This kind of UV light changes the color similarly to what we see on the shroud, just a microscopic layer on the threads, preserving the textile's integrity while leaving a clear imprint. However, generating this effect across a cloth the size of a human body isn't a simple matter of shining a lamp. Experimental data estimate the energy burst required at roughly 34 trillion watts, far beyond any man-made light source and stronger than the most powerful searchlights or lasers on Earth. This radiant pulse would have to last less than 40 billionths of a second to avoid incinerating the cloth, making it not just powerful but extraordinarily brief and precise. Such conditions echo the awe and precision of nuclear events, yet the energy here is conceived as pure light, without destructive heat, a phenomenon almost unheard of in standard physics laboratories. It suggests a sudden, massive release of energy, acting like a flashlight, focused in a perfect pulse, imprinting the volume and form of a body without burning it. This leads to a radical theoretical explanation supported by the AI's findings. The body captured in the shroud was subject to a dematerialization process or collapse state. In this scenario, the body's mass suddenly converted into energy, releasing a collimated burst of radiation that passed through the linen, imprinting its form in a linear column perpendicular to gravity. Einstein's famous equation E equals mc squared tells us even a tiny mass can produce immense energy. If the atoms making up the body rapidly transformed, it would generate an intense flash of radiation. Remarkably, the AI detected that this energy did not explode spherically, as typical in nuclear detonations. Instead, it traveled in a focused beam, leaving the unique gravity-defying image we see. This phenomenon fits a concept akin to an event horizon in physics, a boundary where matter changes states in a sudden phase shift. Crucially, forensic data show no evidence of decomposition or putrefaction in the shroud's image, suggesting the body vanished before natural decay could begin. This narrows the window between physical wrapping and the moment of dematerialization. The preservation of bloodstains alongside the absence of decay products supports the idea that the body remained wrapped long enough for blood to soak into the cloth. But whatever happened next caused the body itself to vanish. This explains why the image's formation defies all known biological and physical processes. With these insights, the shroud emerges not just as a relic, but as a profound scientific puzzle challenging our understanding of matter, energy, and perhaps life itself. From ancient fabric to cutting-edge physics, the mystery deepens with every layer peeled away. At the deepest level, what unsettles physicists is not the power involved, but the restraint. Enormous energy appears to have been released without chaos, without collateral damage, without thermal violence. Nature rarely behaves this way. Energy usually announces itself through destruction. Here, it seems to have obeyed boundaries. As if guided by an internal logic we do not yet possess the mathematics to describe. If this interpretation is even partially correct, the shroud may represent a physical record of a transition rather than an event. Not an explosion, but a conversion. Not motion, but transformation. The linen becomes a silent detector, registering a moment when matter briefly obeyed unfamiliar rules. This possibility places the shroud in a strange category. Neither artifact nor experiment, but evidence. Evidence of a process that cannot be replicated, only inferred. It suggests that physics, like history, may occasionally preserve a singular moment, one that refuses repetition, yet demands explanation. The next chapter of this investigation pushes further into the realm of the extraordinary, where science opens a door to questions once only whispered in the realms of the impossible. The theory of dematerialization. The most extraordinary theory emerging from the AI analysis of the Shroud of Turin is that the body it once covered didn't simply die, it dematerialized. Modern physicists propose what's called the collapse state theory to explain this astonishing phenomenon. According to this idea, the body's mass converted directly into energy in a highly localized process, releasing an immense flash of radiation captured on the linen. This is far beyond traditional decay or decomposition and ventures into the realm of fundamental physics. Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared, teaches us that even a tiny amount of mass contains an enormous amount of energy. If the atoms that made up the body suddenly transitioned or decayed, this energy release would be tremendous, a burst stronger than anything casually encountered in nature. Remarkably, the AI showed this radiation did not flare out as a normal explosion would. Instead, the energy moved in a perfectly straight line, orthogonal to gravity, suggesting an incredibly controlled and directional event. This collimated burst might be imagined as a beam or column of energy, almost like a focused projection directly imprinted onto the cloth. The shroud's image behaves consistently with what some scientists call a volumetric or rectilinear projection, where the body's radiant energy passed through the linen for a fleeting moment. This theory explains why the image's scorch-like imprint rests only on the top microfibers, never burning through or soaking in deeper. Physicists liken this process to an event horizon in biology, a critical threshold where the body's physical state shifts dramatically, becoming something else entirely. The notion challenges conventional biology and physics, but aligns tightly with the unique data AI uncovered, suggesting the body entered a state beyond normal human experience. A rapid phase shift, energy release, and instant disappearance all collide into this bewildering explanation. Adding to the puzzle, forensic evidence shows no signs of putrefaction or tissue breakdown. Normally, within 40 hours, a body begins releasing corrosive substances that would blur or degrade any image on cloth. Yet here, the shroud's imprint is pristine, suggesting the body vanished before decay could begin. This leaves a narrow window of time where blood soaked into the cloth. An image formed, and then, somehow, the body itself was no longer present. The bloodstains reinforce this impossible timeline. If the cloth had been removed or the body extracted, the stains and wounds would have smudged or damaged the linen fibers. Instead, the blood remains perfectly intact alongside the detailed and flawless image, indicating the body stayed wrapped until it vanished without physical disturbance. This haunting detail adds weight to the dematerialization theory. Skeptics may argue these ideas stretch belief, but the AI's detection of a mathematically perfect, gravity-defying projection demands reconsideration. Ordinary explanations related to painting, photography, or forgery simply cannot account for this combination of rigorously tested evidence. The possibility of a supernatural or unexplained scientific event exists at the intersection of faith and physics. Whether you see this as proof of a miracle, a phenomena yet to be understood by science, or the most clever enigma humanity has ever encountered, The Shroud of Turin forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge. It stands as a challenge for future scientists willing to explore the interface of matter, energy, and consciousness. Ultimately, the shroud may be a message hidden in plain sight, a digital ghost etched in time that quietly defies explanation and beckons us to keep searching. At the very edge of this hypothesis lies a quieter implication: information. If matter became energy in a disciplined, non-chaotic release, then structure was preserved even as substance vanished. The image would not be a byproduct of destruction, but a residue of order. Matter translated, not erased. In this sense, the shroud reads less like a burn and more like a snapshot taken at the instant reality-changed state. Such an event would redefine death itself. Not an ending, not decay, but a transition so abrupt that time barely registers it. The cloth becomes a witness to that boundary moment, a membrane between before and after. Nothing tears, nothing moves. The body does not leave. It simply is no longer there. Absence replaces presence with surgical precision. This interpretation also reframes silence in the data as evidence. No blast radius, no heat gradient, no collateral damage, only restraint, only control. Physics usually announces itself loudly when energy is released. Here, it whispers. That whisper is what unsettles researchers most. Perhaps this is why the shroud endures. Not because it explains, but because it refuses to. It suggests that reality may allow for events that are lawful, yet unreachable, structured, yet unrepeatable. The image does not shout an answer. It holds a pause, one that science can approach, but not yet cross. The Shroud of Turin remains one of history's most compelling puzzles, blending science, mystery, and faith in ways few artifacts ever have. From AI's discovery of impossible signals to groundbreaking physics theories, it challenges everything we think we know about reality. If you enjoyed this exploration into the unknown, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries.